Video transmission. Oh, are we good? Are we live? Chat. Hey everyone. I know we're gonna get right into this one. I think we're live. Everybody, how's everyone doing? Um, as you can see, I have Ross Leiser with me, the designer of the Shaman class. This has been a really highly requested live stream video kind of thing for us to cover. Ross, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Hello, chat. Many of you may know me. I've been on the channel a few times before, but I am Ross Leiser, the director and lead designer of Outlandish Adventure Productions. And this is my ninth full class that we have going here, the Shaman. And I'm very much looking forward to talking about it today.
This is so this is a class that I mean you put a lot of work into. I think you first told me about this. Did you tell me about? Were you working on this during Legends of Frozen Far?
Yes,
You
I
were.
was. So this is a class that I actually began concepting before the Accursed released
Really?
in January of 2017. Sorry, 2019, not 2017. Woof. Uh, but yes, this is a class I began wanting to make back while I was still working on the Accursed and just trying to figure out how to implement it because I mean I think I've talked a little bit about the origins before. I am 1/16th Cherokee from my mom's side of the family, and I had the privilege of being able to explore some of that growing up, and just I loved the aspects of it. I loved the spiritualism, the kind of honoring warriors, and also both men and women being warriors, and just awesome stuff. So I just wanted to represent shamanism as a character class with all the respect it deserved.
is
So it just took me a while to figure out how to do that.
is there a concept of it that how do I put this? Well, you know, because we talked about this in the past. I always encourage people. Talked about this in live streams. Whenever you have a class concept, um, how do you justify it being a class and not a subclass? Because like I think some people can see the shaman possibly just being a thing that where they're like, let's just reflavor druid, let's reflavor cleric, let's how do you justify it being a full class and not just like either a reflavor or a subclass for another class?
I mean, that's always the big question. For me, it has to have 2 points to it. The first is you need to create a distinct mechanical identity, something that is large enough to encompass a full class, and that so that that's too large to be fully encompassed in a subclass. And the other is creating a unique narrative identity. I mean, which can often be done in subclasses, but you need to make sure that it's something that can be expanded into its own subclasses. I mean, not everybody like really agrees with the philosophy of what makes something viable as a full class versus just a subclass, but I do my best to make it seem that way in my own products at the very least. That's what I judge my own products on.
Right. I like I thought about that a little bit with the dancer, right? Because the really easy solution I think a lot of people would point to is like, why is this not just a bard subclass? And I'm like, honestly, the weird thing for me was I had this idea for like how the mechanics would work for it, but like the weird thing for me is I've met so many people that are dancers but know nothing about like music theory. And the fact that Bard gets like music instruments, I looked at that and I was like, oh, why can't I get rid of that? Like, pick it up later
I
if
mean,
you.
and there are also dancers that know nothing about like history or lore,
Right,
storytelling. That it's not part of their artistry.
right. Um, so yeah, and I just felt like there was a mechanic that was in there that was like, cool, we can express this through like a full class. And yeah, so starting off with this class, where did let me see here. Let me get to chat real quick. Nicola Zanoga said, "Questions: Where does the shaman get its Where does the shaman's magic, the thing that is shaped by the power of the spirits to create spells, come from?" We will get into that very soon.
Yes, we will.
How does a shaman who's part of the church of a god? So how does a shaman who is like a temple priest, I'm guessing, how would that work? I,
Well,
to,
I mean, the thing is, and Zeke Julian, I'm seeing later in chat, already touched on that a bit. There is no distinct line between spiritualism and religion.
right,
I mean, in fact, many religions, especially African and Native American religions, rely on spiritualism and is based entirely around that. But they're not mutually exclusive. So, for
right,
example, if you belong to if you belong to basically a Christian deity, like if that's who you worship, then perhaps your spirits can be angels of different types,
right.
or your spirits can be the honored dead, or saints. There's so many ways you can flavor it, however you need to.
Yeah, you allow for like a really broad scope with this. So, this isn't like very. I think the only like kind of character expectation is that your character must somewhat believe in at least like something of an afterlife, something of
Yeah.
spirits existing in the
I mean,
world.
even then, there's nature spirits that are allowed for in the spirit guides.
Yeah. And you hit some really cool flavors with the spirits that I was just like, oh, I knew immediately if I was gonna roll up a shaman, I was like, lost spirit. I am totally about that. Um,
Yeah, it was really fun designing the spirit guides, which we'll get into later, because I got to look at Cherokee definitions of different types of elemental and spiritual concepts, but then I also was able to pluck some things from pop culture, and especially like horror movies and ghost films.
yeah. um, oh god, Michael Collins said I would love to see a live play with both of you and Benjamin Huffman. Oh man, we will.
Would be fun.
That would be super fun. That would be super fun. Um, but
All of us playing our own classes would be great.
I know, right? Oh man, I wanted so bad. It's always like kind of an odd thing, right? Like you want someone to DM so you can play your own class. Like,
Yeah,
uh, um,
yeah.
but so let's start getting into this PDF. And by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar with this one, you can go pick this one up over on the DMs Guild. Uh, what what's the shaman going for right now?
The Shaman is 749 on the
Okay.
Dungeon Masters Guild, and that is a very experimental price point for me because most of my classes have been below $5, and most other full classes are less than $5. But I hired an editor for this one, so I decided to try going a little bit higher to offset some of my costs, and fortunately, it's been working out so far.
Well, you were telling me the other thing about because I've been working on this video script for an upcoming project, and it was funny because I kicked an idea over to you, and you were like, "Wait, that's not even working the way that most people run it." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And you told me about what Eli told you about. I'll just say it here. What Eli told you about how people run dark vision wrong, and I was
Yes.
like, "Wait,
I would say at least 95% of D&D players run dark vision incorrectly, and I was guilty of it for the longest time.
oh, whenever you said that, I was like, wait, what? Oh, no, I seriously like, I, I think I like GIF reacted to it, but it was for real. I looked at my phone and I was like, oh my god, wait, what? How have I been doing this? We'll get into that. We will do that. Yeah. Um. So Eli has clearly shown that they have a great grasp of the system. Like
Yes.
so.
And for chat's purposes, Eli's pronouns are they, them. If you misgender, I will correct you.
um. The the what was I gonna say? And as a disclaimer here, just so everybody knows, I did layout and graphic design on this one. So by me endorsing it, if you go over and purchases, I just don't want anyone to think that I was tricking you into getting this by promoting it here. Ross is a great designer whose work I very, very much support. So whenever he asked if I would do layout, I was very, very happy to do so on this one. So just know that.
Oh, Rich Mary, just real quick, I'm very happy that you like the art. I got that commissioned by an artist named Isaac DeKing. He is at Christ Illustrations. I'll drop that in the chat on Twitter. And he did an absolutely phenomenal job on the cover.
It was really fun to work with, like while I was doing the typography, because immediately what kind of came into my mind was the Dark Crystal. It just kind of has that vibe, the 80s kind of fantasy vibe to it that I was like, yeah, and that's what immediately inspired like all the yeah.
I mean, what I wanted, what the prompt that I sent him was, I wanted an orc shaman, for this, because orcs are so often portrayed as these violent, savage beings in so much of base D&D. But I wanted to kind of turn that on its head, and just I wanted an elder orc shaman who was just had this very peaceful, content expression, just hanging out with a spirit. And he just delivered on that prompt and that feeling so hard in this title, this cover page spread that he created for me.
I know I love the cat, like the ethereal kind of like like zooming
Yep.
in on that. I'm like I would have
Mhm.
never thought about the
The
coloration.
iridescent
Yeah,
sheen
that's
he
so
put
good.
into the ghostly fur on that is so just. Ugh.
Yeah, that's oh man. So let's get into the class. Um,
Ah, yes, yes.
so starting out with the shaman, an orc rides confidently alongside her adventuring party, chanting sacred prayers to aid them in the upcoming battle. As the orc's stirring voice begins to lift their spirits, her comrades would swear they can see an ethereal warrior floating beside their friend. Quickly extending his hand, a Kalishtar exorcist focuses the power of his quarry partner to sear an abjuring mark onto an attacking demon. As the fiend recoils from the innocent woman it was attempting to possess, the Kalishtar blasts it with ethereal flame, forcing the demon back into the abyss. Chiseling the final touches onto a stone statue, a dwarf looks to their spirit guide for approval. The fire spirit, in the form of a fox, flares with happiness and leaps to inhabit the totem. Shamans cultivate connections with spirits and become conduits between the material and spirit worlds. Whether shamans are carefully mixing poultices, joyously blessing a couple's new union, or protecting their allies in a desperate battle, it is their symbiotic relationships with the spirits that give them access to their spiritual knowledge and powers. I always love intro flavor text. Yeah. That, whenever you can just totally paint a scene about the character with just that, it's like, it's so hard to nail. It really is
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, ugh.
And honestly, like, I cannot take full credit for this.
Oh.
I wrote the basic building blocks of all of these. In fact, I actually had 5 entries, one for each subclass.
Mm.
But when Eli was doing the editing, I adore working with Eli because they have this unbelievable attention for detail and this incredible way of just spicing up the words you have on the page. So, like, even though a lot of these scenes were concocted from my own brain, they're only so good, like so visually impressive because of the work Eli did. And so that is actually one of the major reasons I gave them basically a co-author credit on the Dungeon
Oh.
Masters Guild page itself for the class, because they just did so much work on punching up my wording.
That
Like,
was,
I
yeah.
think it was far and beyond the work of a normal editor, personally.
Well, yeah, editors don't usually go that extra mile of like, here, like you have this idea, let me help you spice up like, a little bit. You know, I was kind of, because I did the dancer so quick, uh, you know, I was kind of messing with the flavor text because I had the idea, right? And I just hit up Nate over in on the Discord server, and I was like, I just want to see what could you do with this, and because I've been trying to get Nate to like really really publish. I'm like, you're a great writer. I want to see you writing. So Nate got me back like all the flavor text that I got for all the subclasses was just like he sent me this back and he's like, let me know what you think. And I was like, oh my God, wait, hold up. And like working with that and seeing his image of what these subclasses were honestly inspired me to like redesign some of the features because I was like, no, you got the cinematics of it exactly what I wanted, so much better. Working with somebody to just help spice up your narrative, like, we can be great mechanical designers, but sometimes we do miss the purple floweriness of the cinematics of it all. Yeah. So, I was just trying to make sure there wasn't anything in chat. Okay. Orcs from homeworld. Oh, okay. So getting into this, we're gonna start out with a D8 hit die. So
Hmm.
pretty average hit die. Uh, Proficiencies, light
A
armor.
beefy enough that you can potentially survive on the front line with the right equipment, but not so beefy that you're going to be tanking.
Right. Like, Forged Domain Cleric can totally get into the front line because of those features, and like there's certain shamans that can potentially get into the front line with like specific builds, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Proficiencies, light armor, weapons, simple weapons, tools, herbalism kit, saving throws, wisdom and charisma, and then skills, choose two from arcana, deception, insight, intimidation, persuasion, and religion. Starting equipment, you start with the following equipment in addition to anything granted by your background: any two simple weapons or light crossbow and 20 bolts, an explorer's pack or a priest pack, leather armor, an herbalism kit, and a shamanistic totem. See, the shaman spellcasting, we'll get into all that. And then there's the multi-classing rules right there. So, very quickly starting out with this one. Um, we're not getting a normal spellcasting here. And
No, and
this,
that's why it's not called spell casting like the normal version of the feature. It's very much
right.
its own thing.
So, we'll go through it bit by bit, but this is, I think, probably going to be one of the big portions that we talk about here, because understanding why this spellcasting is okay. Your magic systems, I, I finally figured it out. What it is about like your homebrew that I'm like, oh, okay, this is what sells me on Ross's stuff. Is that every time that you write a spellcaster, and this is gonna sound like way massive, yeah, blowing smoke up your ass, but I feel like you are as good at writing D&D magic systems as Brandon Sanderson is at writing his own magic systems. Because,
Oh, whoa,
well, no,
whoa,
I don't see anybody.
whoa.
I don't see anybody doing innovative magic systems in the way that you do. And it's the thing for me was like, I think it was working with you that made me realize what exchangeable spellcasting could be for merchant, because I was like, I need to like something needs to there needs to be some spice happening with their spellcasting, and I think it was talking it through with you that it was like, oh, that kind of evolved out. Um, yeah, gestures to Odic, the shiz nice. um, so we have a new spellcasting here from you. Most of his
I mean,
shamans,
I like breaking the mold.
yeah,
That's who I am as a person. I really dislike kind of rote design. Like I don't mind when other people do it. Like I understand. Like the system works. There doesn't necessarily need like to change. But for me, I like experimenting.
mm,
I like taking the chassis that have been given to us in fifth edition and hammering them into a new shape. I enjoy exploring with that. And especially with spellcasters, because I adore spellcasters so much. I don't think I can actually play a character that doesn't have access to magic in fifth edition because it's just there's not enough action and decision making to it for me personally. So I just really love messing with spellcasting systems
right.
a lot.
There were two questions I wanted to hit real quick. Spencer Jackson asked, just curious, why deception for shaman?
Because one of the things that I've noticed in base 5e design is they always assume that you're playing a good aligned character. And uh, I mean, I always play good aligned characters myself. Like I don't like playing evil characters unless I'm a
Right.
DM. Um, but I do really believe that people should be allowed to play evil characters if they want to. Because I've always wanted to run an evil campaign, or at least a short running evil campaign as a DM to see what people would do. And so the thing is, just because the base shaman does like it when people are respectful of the dead, doesn't mean I want to force you to play it that way.
Sure.
And so giving the option for deception lets you play that kind of more antagonistic evil shaman if you want to.
Well, I think I think there's also like an odd it's kind of like with intimidation checks too, where I feel like that puts a certain expectation that you need to play a bully if you get proficiency in that. whereas you get proficiency in deception, and it's like you always have to be a liar. Have you read The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch?
No, I can't say I have.
Man, you talk about somebody that is just. I mean, the main protagonist, Locke Lamora, is probably the best face I've seen in like fantasy literature. It's like if you wanted to watch a Tarantino movie, like Tarantino writes fantasy, is the way that I look at Lies of Locke Lamora. But great lead character is the most silver tongued, like just kind of tricky bastard I've ever seen. You know, I love Lies of Locke Lamora. I highly suggest that book to anybody that's looking for a good fantasy series. Um, less. Oh, there we go. Miniature Collector asks, why did you incorporate an Exorcist subclass, and how does it take narratively to shamanism? That archetype is usually tied to religion and pop culture, and it would seem to fit a cleric first.
I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, cleric gets the banishment spell for a reason, and you can very much play that archetype with cleric. But it's not just limited to that. Like for example, there's a lot of European shamanism that happens. Norse mythology. There are European shamans
Mm-hmm.
in Norse mythology. And so I wanted to make sure that I was representing a more worldly, and of course, when I do further subclasses in the future, which I eventually will, don't know when, but I will, I'm going to try to bring in like some Japanese shamanism, some Chinese shamanism. But I wanted to make sure that the class felt broader than just African diaspora, and Native American, which is what the other four subclasses are. And then I just had an idea for a very aggressive, get the hell out of my world shaman, and that's what became Exorcism, for bringing in more of the European elements to in a subclass.
Right. I also just gotta take a break because, sorry, just real quick. We just passed 4,000 subs. Oh my god. Oh. Whew. Oh. Man, thank you all so much. God, the 3,000 blew by. 3,000 absolutely blew by. This is like, it's still kind of like, man. Yeah, first off, to any of you that are seeing the stream now and just subscribe, thank you so much for everything. Everyone that's in here, I know I'm seeing a lot of people that have been here with the channel show up to like every freaking live stream. Thank you all so much. This has been so cool to see, especially over the last 2 weeks. More subscribers, god dang. Thank you all for everything. It's been super cool to see like friends and everything congratulating me. It's this crazy stuff. Because there's someone who's boosting up the glory of homebrew. Thank you guys. Yeah, cool. I'm super glad that Ross was here for all this, because Ross has been a huge you've also been a big friend of the channel that has like helped bolster up the quality of the content. So like, yeah, thank you for everything.
I mean,
as
it's
well.
been my pleasure. It honestly has. It's a pleasure to have you as a friend and as a person to bounce ideas off of and to hear your ideas. So it's great to see you having success, man.
Thanks. Oh man. Okay, we got those 2 questions. Sorry, my like catching my breath. All right, cool. So getting into the spellcasting, getting into the class.
Yes.
So, shamanistic ritual spellcasting. Most of a shaman's spellcasting abilities come directly from channeling a spirit guide. See the medium feature later in this class's description. However, through the rituals you okay, I read that weird. However, through the rituals you studied to commune with the spirits and your repeated contact with the spirit world, you have also learned to cast a modest selection of ritual spells on your own, without needing to channel a spirit. See Chapter 10 of the Player's Handbook for the general rules of spellcasting. Cantrips, 2 cantrips of your choice, and it lists it up here in the column. Preparing and casting ritual spells. In the Shaman spell list, each spell of first level and higher has the ritual tag. You prepare the list of Shaman ritual spells that are available for you to cast choosing from the Shaman spell list. When you do so, choose a number of Shaman ritual spells equal to half your Shaman level rounded up, minimum of 2 spells. The spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots. Unless you gain a Shaman ritual spell from another source, you can only cast the spell as a ritual, or you can cast the spell only as a ritual. For example, if you're a 5th level Shaman, you have 4 first level, 3 second level, and 2 third level spell slots. Your list of prepared Shaman's ritual spells can include 3 spells of 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level in any combination. Casting a ritual spell doesn't remove it from your list of prepared spells. You can change your list of prepared ritual spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of Shaman ritual spells requires time spent preparing the materials and rehearsing the rites, at least 1 minute per level for each spell on your list. Okay. Ooh. All right, so in summary.
Sorry about that, chat. Discord decided to entirely reboot on me for no reason.
Oh, well, it was all good. I was making it through this feature, so I don't think you missed much. So all right. This is a let's summarize this. Why only ritual spells that you get from the class?
So I was really thinking about like when you take this idea of spiritualism and connecting with spirits, and really wanted to create something that was not your typical spellcaster. Because full spellcasters are extremely, extremely difficult to design because so much of that design space is eaten up by the 6 that exist in the player's handbook.
Right.
So, the major thing that you really want when you're doing that is to create areas of differentiation. I did that with the Odic by having health-based spellcasting and maximum, in particular, hit point based spellcasting instead of spell slots. For this, I knew I wanted the progression table to look like a more traditional kind of progression table for a full spellcaster. But when I really got into the nitty gritty of where does a shaman's magic come from, and I thought it might be really interesting to have it come from relationships with your particular spirit guides. Like you're cultivating a friendship, a bond with a particular spirit.
Right.
But I also knew that I wanted there to be some sort of through line in the base class, so that everyone still feels like a shaman, even if their spell lists are looking wildly different because of the spirits they're connecting with. And that got me into the inspiration of I realized just how much ritualism plays a part in spiritualism. How there's so many just like sacred rites and just and traditions and ceremonies that shamans perform for their communities. And that's when it hit me that this could be the ritual spellcasting full caster. And that's kind of where it all came from.
Well, it's so I'd seen classes in the past that like kind of tried to focus in on ritual casting, but I've never seen someone go so far as to make it to where the entire class spell list is like nothing but rituals. Now, it does, Chad, don't worry, it does diverge from that, but in an interesting way that feels warlock pact boon ish. We'll get there. It will get the kind of instantaneous spells that you can cast, but I thought that this was just such a cool thing for like the class overall. The base class is only getting the access to the ritual spells, and then you get your combat stuff later on. That's what helps kind of like mold you.
Yeah.
I,
One thing that I kind of stumbled onto is a really cool, like you don't really see it terribly well in the text of the class here, but one thing that really is interesting if you actually play a shaman is realizing how much this class in general loves preparation. Like you don't really see it on the page, but this class rewards you extremely heavily for researching your enemies and preparing silver bullets more than I think any other class I've ever seen.
hmm.
And I think that's a really cool aspect to it that I discovered in playtesting that I kind of accidentally stumbled onto
Well, is the so
when writing the features.
is the prepared the exact same as cleric? Is that
No, so no, so cleric does they get equal to their wisdom modifier plus their cleric level.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is different. And for the person and for let me sorry. Uh, Eli on Mars, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I apologize if I'm not. Clerics do get ritual casting.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do have ritual casting. They don't have a spell book that they can ritual cast from, but they can ritual cast their prepared spells.
I was like, I hope they do. Otherwise, I was like abusing the hell out of that during whenever I was playing Sir
I
Hammond.
mean, I believe sorcerer and warlock are the
Warlock don't.
only two full spellcasters that natively don't get
Yeah.
ritual casting, if
Uh,
I'm not mistaken.
but it's such a cool mechanic that I was like, oh, it feels like this could have been expanded on so much more in the base like rules of the game, and I don't feel like we've really seen it come out. I think like in the player's handbook, it was basically only like Totem Barbarian that had a ritual only kind of a restriction. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that was so cool. Why didn't they do more of that? That's sick. Like, let's make
Yep.
them.
And so I really hit on a lot of that in this class.
So this has been, I think here with the spellcasting ability has been kind of the big question that a lot of people have had about this one. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for your shaman spells. Your magic comes from your
Yes.
connection to the spirit world, powered by the strength of your relationships with its ethereal denizens. You use charisma whenever a shaman spell refers to your spellcasting ability. In addition, you all know how spell casting stuff works. So I think the expectation for a lot of people that might be coming to this would be that this would be a wisdom caster. So,
Yes.
oh, yep, see right there.
And that is a totally valid opinion. And that's probably the biggest criticism I've gotten on this class.
Right.
I've gotten some wonderful reviews where like people have had praised everything, and they're like, I personally don't understand why it's charisma. I would use wisdom. And you know what? That is totally okay. If you want to reflavor it to be wisdom, that's fine by me. Reflavor it.
Right.
By all means, I won't be offended. When I was designing this class and I was really thinking about what the different spellcasting abilities mean narratively, wisdom is the spellcasting ability of I am connecting to a force. For druids, I'm connecting to nature. For clerics, I'm connecting to faith. That is where my magic comes from. Charisma is much more about connecting to oneself or to a specific entity. So when I was thinking about where the shaman's magic is coming from, when I'm thinking about their magic comes from the fact they have cultivated bonds with particular spiritual entities. That was charisma to me.
And
And so that's what I based it on. And also I wanted this to be able to be a party face because they're community leaders.
that
So
was
those are yes.
well, and it was a thing that I remember us talking about initially that I was like, all right, convince me. Why is it a charisma caster? And it finally, like, I think after enough talk, I was like, it makes sense. And I was still kind of like up in the air about it because I think the fiction of it was kind of what colored my opinion on it. And I think through enough talk, it was like it does make sense. And I think that a lot of people have a bias against homebrew charisma because there's just so many charisma based ones out there. But like honestly, I've moved past the biases with it where I was like, we really need another charisma. I'm like, well, it makes sense. Like if it makes sense, I don't know why not. And like play a social, it's a social game. Play a social character. I don't know. like but no, the narrative of it does make sense. And I think the bond of like charisma is sometimes used, I think, for if we talk about the sense of like sorcerer, it doesn't always make sense to me that sorcerer is a social star. You know, like sometimes you
Yeah,
would think that
seen
like
a lot of things with people being convinced that that should be a Constitution caster,
yeah,
and I think that's in some ways correct if Constitution casting weren't inherently broken.
there's I am waiting for a constitution caster to come along that makes me think like, well, okay, so the
All right,
yeah,
all right,
so how'd you do it with the Odic?
get ready.
Right. So what was your thought
The
on it with the
challenge
Odic?
has been placed.
Um, because that right, you did constitution casting on the Odic, right?
No,
No, it was wisdom.
um, even for the
Okay,
Odic, it is wisdom. Yes, you get better and more spell casting if you go into Constitution,
constitution. That's right. Okay.
but that is why I knew I couldn't base it spell casting on Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah, Amish is
Because then
constitution's
it would
quantity.
be sad or single ability score dependent.
Yeah.
So uh, yeah, Amish Rambo has it exactly correct.
Yeah.
For the Odic Constitution, is quantity of spells, wisdom is quality of spells. That is exactly correct, Amish Rambo. Thank you for being concise. Well, because I have trouble with that.
um so yeah, I'd love to see an actual constitution based casting mechanic that works out well. But I think mostly that's going to come down to like how do you make it invest in to stuff that isn't just constitution. Uh that's yeah, I
I
know.
mean, I feel like I have to do it now.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I mean,
not
I wrote the Odic out of spite. I can write this out of
yeah.
being challenged.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to see something actually make it work. Okay, so they can use a shamanistic totem for their spellcasting stuff. Shaman spell list, we can pause it. Is there anything particular about the spell list that you want to make a point on before we go on to another feature?
um, I mean, there's nothing like totally off the wall. There's a number of new spells that I wrote for this book, for
Mm,
this class in particular, that only this class gets. Those are the Ghost Sight spell at 4th level, the Ghost Fire and Lay to Rest spells and cantrips, and then there's an entire family of spells called the Apparition spells that do a lot of fun stuff. But we can save those for later.
yeah.
Just the point is that everything on here is a ritual and can be cast only as a ritual unless it's a cantrip. And
Okay.
that creates some fun, interesting gameplay scenarios that the base class plays with a bit as we get into the higher level spells,
And we and that's
higher level
another
class features.
another part of this PDF, and why I totally feel you were super justified. Oh, there we go. Hiccup. Why you were super justified in charging like it was 795 or 799,
749.
749, is not only for the class, but like there's a lot of spell work that went into this. Like I'm used to seeing some spell products on the DM's Guild that have less spells than this. Um, I mean, for real though, right? Like,
I mean, I'm also the guy that wrote 16 new spells for the Accursed because I
yeah.
realized there weren't enough spells to fill out that spell list. So,
But part of what you're getting for this is also spells that can be used for other classes, brand new stuff. Yeah, I was trying to remember Ghostfire. Oh, I don't want to get super deep into this one, but I remember Ghostfire. Someone just called it out in chat. Oh, Forecast was another one that you told me. Like this is like the
yes.
last minute addition that I
So
was like,
real funny. So real funny, chat. The forecast spell got added to this at the very last minute. Um, so funny enough about this spell is we realized that there was an awkward piece of dead space when Terran was doing layout, and I'm like, wait, I think. And Terran was like, all right, we need like a new F or G spell to
right.
make this work out. And and I'm like, oh wait, I think I might have a ritual spell that I just wrote for the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook that could go really nicely here. And so I grabbed the forecast spell off of my design document for the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook and slapped it in front of Terran, and
I I
and the flavor fits so perfectly.
I just remember seeing it and I was like, oh yeah. Forecast. Uh, Casting time in 1 minute. Well, I'll just read this real quick. You predict that you're going to cast a spell sometime along your life's path, and send your future self the power to cast it. Choose a spell that you know or have prepared that has a casting time of 1 action, then expend the spell slot of the spell's level or higher to cast it. Once you can cast the forecasted spell without expending a spell slot, at which time you lose it as your forecasted spell. You also lose the spell as your forecasted spell if you cast the spell again. This is so good that like I was like, man, you could base an entire like subclass, like a wizard subclass or something around just this one mechanic of like you could hold on to it like it's kind of like a battery. Like, okay, I know that this one spell is here. Honestly, you know what could use this? This would be really cool on Divination Wizard.
I mean, they'll be able
Oh,
to grab it
yeah. Oh,
when
yeah.
the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook comes out later this year.
Yeah.
Plug.
Right. So yes, Amish Rainbow, you could hang on to this spell indefinitely, which is part of
Yes.
like the cool. You have to expend a 6 level spell slot to potentially get a spell later on down the line. Well, you expend the sixth
But
and the other spell slot, right?
what shocks me about this, the fact that I can't believe I didn't already write this spell for Shaman, and it was not written for the Shaman in particular, is that this spell complements it so unbelievably well.
Yeah.
Because I was already talking about how this class really benefits from preparation. You can cast, you can forecast one of your ritual spells or one of your spirit guide spells with
Yeah.
this. So that you can always have access to that spell at a moment's notice,
Yeah.
even if you don't have the spell prepared. You don't have to worry about casting it as a ritual. Even if you're not don't have that spirit guide channeled. It is literally a perfect mechanical synergy with this class.
Right. Well, and someone just said, "Oh, look, it's Artificer spell storing item, but as a spell." Yes, and it's one of the big things that makes Artificer so cool that it's a shame that other like it couldn't have gotten expanded in a way. Um, it's not exactly spell storing item because only you can invoke this spell. Um, that's right, right? Spell storing item, and it's only once that you can do this because spell storing item can do it
Yeah.
intelligence modifier times per day. This
Mm-hmm.
is rewarding prep, which I am all about. Um, Ghostfire, and then we'll get back on the back to the class. You summon Ethereal Flame into the palm of your hand and hurl it at a creature within range. The attack is able to hit a creature within the border ethereal, though it passes harmlessly through most material objects and ignores cover granted by non magical objects and barriers unless they're tangible within the border ethereal. On a hit, the creature takes 1d6 force damage. The spell's damage increases by 1d6 when cantrip scaling. This is like, yeah, Zandy Games just said, I love Ghostfire. It's so simple but so evocative. Just the, in 99% of combat situations, it passing through the border ethereal is like nothing. But it's so cool. It just that like it has mechanical weight in a way that like sounds like this should be super insane, but it works as a cantrip. Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, really, there are little elements that you always have to kind of let inspire your design, and I love taking elements from certain spells. I'm not. I think the link that I posted for the shaman class might have gotten blocked
Oh,
from your chat.
it's in the description of this live stream.
Oh, cool. So yes, then Zebrin 08. There's a link in the description. You can get this at if you, and thank you very much. So so with Ghostfire, I knew very early on in this process that see invisibility, that spell, had to be involved in this class somehow.
Yeah.
And we'll see that in the third level feature.
Yes, yes.
When we get there. And just I knew that the border ethereal and messing with it in certain ways had to be something that this class did. And so I just kind of thought, like, what is a really simple way to make the shaman the border ethereal caster if we want to do it? And then Ghostfire just popped into my head. Just being able to uh, punch something through the border ethereal, being something else that no other class could do
Right.
with a cantrip, just it felt right. And Ghost Sight and Breaching Apparition both mess with those things as well.
I'm posting the link to this. I'm pinning it in chat. One sec.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and Amish Rambo, yes. Ghostfire is absolutely something that a DM would absolutely pick up and be like, "You think you're going to hide from cover behind from my BBEG? Not today!"
Oh man. Okay, there we go. All right, that should all be good. Okay. So, yes, there are a lot of spells in here. It's a big document, 35 pages.
I did not write every single one of these spells. There are 6 spells called out by the and yes, Amish Rambo, etherealness is also a thing that this class can do. We'll see that later in the base class. But I did not write every single spell in here. There are 6 spells that I mention in this the new spell section itself that Benjamin Huffman wrote for the Complete Handbook series, and very generously allowed me to include in here because I thought they were really great fits for the shaman, and he agreed. So big thanks to Benjamin. I love working with him, and I can't wait to do more work with him on the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook. And shameless plug again.
Zandy Games asked, Ross, can I put Ghostfire on a spell list for a class I'm working on? I wouldn't reprint the spell, but it would be on the list.
So here's the thing, Zandy. I'm 100% okay if you both include it on your list and you include the full text as long as there's proper attribution. If you look in the credits page of the Shaman class itself, there is literally, I have a specific credit for additional spells. Benjamin Huffman of Sterling Berman Adventuring Company.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a similar thing of Ross Leiser of Outlandish Adventure Productions in your credits, I am 100 and say what spell that I wrote somewhere in your document, I am totally okay for you to do that.
Cool. Thank you, Ross. Yeah, and any of you that are like interested in getting into like homebrew content and you see like a spell that appears on a class that you're just like, oh man, that'd be so cool if I could snag that and use it for my homebrew. Sorry, I just drank a whole lot of coffee. Use it for my homebrew. Reach out to the creator. You know, like I've had it happen with like 3 or 4 different times where people have been like, I really like this spell that appears in the merchant. Would it be cool if I used it for this like cleric subclass or something? I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Just throw a shout out. That'd be cool.
I mean, I basically did it for the entirety of exchangeable casting for the Archmage Warlock in the Complete Arcanist's Handbook.
But there's, especially whenever you build up like good like friendships with people, you're like, oh man, what was it? The pop star dancer. I even hit up Benjamin and I was like, you have a thing in your luchador fighter for your pugilist that is so good for this. The secret identity thing. I was like, I need this for the Hannah Montana pop star. Do you mind if I kind of like repurpose that for the dancer? And he was like, yeah, go for it. Like, so yeah, it's, people are usually pretty cool with you, as long as you just shout them out.
If you ask, the answer is often yes. But if you assume, we'll get very salty.
Yeah.
Like if you publish something with our work in it and you didn't ask, we will get very salty very fast. We're usually really nice if you ask us first.
So medium. Okay. So here we're getting into where this class is. This is the spirit guide thing, right? Yeah. So
yes, the medium feature.
With medium, You are able to channel spirits from the spirit world to borrow their abilities and become a conduit for their powers. Choose 2 spirit guides from the spirit guides section at the end of this class's description. You choose additional spirit guides at higher levels, as shown in the spirit guides column of the Shaman table. Whenever you gain a spell in this class, you can replace one of your chosen spirit guides with a different one. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can conduct a unique ritual to contact one of your spirit guides. The specifics of the ritual are your choice. You might light incense and pray, craft a small charm, sing a traditional song, or perform a sacred dance to a beating drum. Regardless of how you choose to contact the other side, the ritual takes 10 minutes to complete, at the end of which you begin channeling one of your spirit guides. You can perform this ritual at the same time you prepare a new list of ritual spells. While you channel the spirit guide, you gain the features and spells it grants. Each spell granted by the spirit guide counts as a shaman spell for you and can be cast using your spell slots, following the normal rules for spellcasting rather than only as a ritual. You channel the spirit guide until you choose to dismiss it as an action, until you channel a new spirit guide by using this feature again, or until you die. In any of these cases, the spirit guide returns to the spirit world when you choose to channel it again. Let's get a preview of what some of these spirits do for you.
Well, before we jump there, I just want to point out the dichotomy here of the 2 first level features.
Oh yeah.
So shamanic ritual spellcasting is your rituals. Like, this is where you get all of your ritual spells from and how you prepare and cast those. Medium and your spirit guides is how you're going to dynamically engage in combat. So, yeah, I mean, yes, you can pick your silver bullet spirit guide if you know what you're about to be fighting. Like, you're not going to want to channel your fire spirit if you're about to be fighting a red dragon. Like, that's just not going to go well for you.
Right.
But in general, like, there's a lot of preparation, as I've said, to this class. But the medium is the dynamic spellcasting, and shamanic ritual spellcasting is very much your, in general, out of combat, extreme utility spellcasting.
So these are. Is there one in particular that you think would be fun to take a look at for live stream?
I mean, probably my personal favorite is Mischievous, just because I had so much fun writing that, and the art by Daniel Commercy is so unbelievably charming for that one. That the little, like, chihuahua goblin chupacabra thing.
I was gonna say goblin chihuahua. It's so doofy. I love it. I just, oh man. So
for those who don't know, this is a Graveyard Spirit by Daniel Commercy on Drive-Thru RPG. I love Daniel's work. I mean, Benjamin and I used hired him to create our artwork for the covers of the complete handbook series, all 3 of them so far.
Yeah.
And there's just something, like, oddly compelling and silly and cute about how unbelievably ugly this thing is.
Right. I know someone, Amish Rambo in chat just said if Schmeagle found a second ring.
So this one, I had a ton of fun writing because I asked myself, I based it on a poltergeist that doesn't mean to harm anyone, but just wants to have some fun with the poor, unfortunate souls that have stumbled into the haunted house it occupies. And so that's where some of these spirit guides came from. Just like tweaks on... Sorry, the chat is cracking me up.
Yeah.
It breaks just having these fun little homages to some parts of popular culture were a lot of fun to create.
We can just zoom up on it, chat. You wanna? Can we make it like the new channel avatar now that we're at 4,000 subs? Just. Oh, I love it. Okay, so
Look at him.
I love the
his glory.
I remember looking at this, and I think you even told me, like, think poltergeist with it, and I was like, okay. And then, like, I saw the first level spell, and I saw catapult, and I was like, oh my god, yes, too good, too good. Oh, that was
the very first time I saw the catapult spell in Xanathar's. I'm like, they need to put this on a ghost-based spell list.
Yeah,
because it is perfect.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Wait, is it? Oh, wait. Is there any way for an undead warlock to get that? I guess not, because it was in Xanthar's guide, and they don't usually do that cross spell list thing. Um,
What's is catapult a sorcerer and a wizard only spell?
is it? I, it
I
would
don't
be
know.
weird if it
It
was on
might
the
be.
warlock spell list, but like
I'm checking quick. I'm checking.
that'd be a really funny
Yeah,
fix
it's
for the.
sorcerer and wizard only.
Wow,
Oh well.
that'd be a good replacement for false life. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
I mean, I homebrew these spell lists on things all the time because
yeah,
they're like, we're not putting any spell on here. It's not from the PHP. And I'm
right.
just thinking, why?
That's always.
Why?
I'm like, really? They
I
get
mean, I
this?
understand the reasoning that they don't want to make people require more than just the PHP in the book they're looking at. But in that case, why don't you print the Xanathar
Spells
spells
in the
to
next.
the lists for things in Xanathars?
Uh,
Why is Tarna's Gold on the Hexblade spell
I
list?
I'm like, and I'm also like, wait, really, Wizards? You don't want people to have to buy another book? Really? You don't?
Why isn't Steel Windstrike
Yeah.
on the Hexblade expanded spell list?
Uh, oh, I will
I
never.
don't even like that subclass, but that is an obvious inclusion.
Yeah. Ugh. All right. All right.
Sorry, I have opinions, chat. I have
Yeah.
opinions. I'm
Hey,
sorry. I get
we're
very passionate.
we're here for opinions. So mischievous spirit. Let's talk about this one real quick. Some corrupted souls don't desire to cause harm, but instead have an irreparable spark of whimsy that even the veil between worlds can't be dim. But dim? Be dim? I don't think I've seen that word before.
Eat him, yeah.
We learned something today. Um, these mischievous spirits can often be found playing pranks on the living, moving objects around rooms, slamming doors, and opening shutters, and otherwise drawing mortals into their shenanigans. So, you get bonus cantrips with this, thaumaturgy, and vicious mockery. And if you already know the thaumaturgy cantrip, you can create up to 2 of the spell's magical effects each time you cast it. I love that thaumaturgy, everyone feels like it's so like, oh, holy prestidigitation or whatever. It is like, it is such a trickery kind of a, like,
I mean, it's also on the Warlock spell list, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, right. Well, it's meant to be like, how do you put it? It's just like,
Puts out torches, it causes windows to
yeah.
fly open, it creates thunder noises. That is a haunted house. That is a haunted house spell.
Well, didn't Jester use it in like? I mean, Jester uses it in Critical Role basically just to do that, to make people terrified of like. It's meant for like role play and terrifying people of magic stuff happening. Like, yeah, is thaumaturgy cleric only?
All right, checking my thing on my phone.
You check that. So, but then you get these spells. Clearly, these are the spells.
It is cleric only.
Is it?
Apparently.
Oh, tieflings get it.
Oh, tieflings get it. That's
Tieflings
why.
get
That's
it.
what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, she used it to fuck with people in taverns. Yeah. Oh man, Chester's like, but so mischievous spirit spells. This is going to be where you get all of your combat spellcasting relevance.
Every single one of these is a shenanigans spell. Every single one.
So catapult, pretty clearly. Disguise self makes sense. Grease is awesome. And it's funny because like I don't know that I would have thought of grease for shenanigan spells. But it's like, yeah, no duh. Invisibility. Not...
It's the banana peel.
Yeah, it is. I like invisibility. Knock. Knock is such an underappreciated spell too. Magic mouth. Blink. Major image. Greater invisibility. Hallucinatory terrain. Pass wall. Oh, pass wall. Seeming. Programmed illusion. Mirage arcane. Glibness. And then true polymorph. Oh, that's great. So they follow a similar kind of a thing, right? You're going to get like 2 cantrips. Well, and what's interesting with this is these aren't cantrips that like, you know, a lot of classes have, right? You pick it, you're set with it. you get access to different cantrips based on the spirit that you cast, or proficiencies, or an additional kind of an effect, right? If I'm remembering that right.
Yeah. So if you even look at Mournful Spirit, which is
Mournful.
right next to it, like
Yes.
sometimes it gives you one cantrip and then gives you a really good way of using it. Sometimes you get proficiencies, like in Warrior Spirit, you get proficiency with martial weapons and shields. So it's really all about the play style that the spirit would want to give you, or that the spirit would want to have if they were to inhabit the material world. So that's kind of what I based all of these on.
Was there oh, Spiteful Strike. Spiteful Strike was the one that I was like, there's also like a I was like, there's also just like an augmentation kind of a feature. So like, when you
Yeah.
channel the spirit,
So
yeah.
Vengeful Spirit is the fuck that one guy in particular
Yeah.
spirit, because every single spell on its list cares about hitting one person over and over and over again. Every spell is single target per turn, really. That's the theme behind the Vengeful Spirit, because it just wants to fuck one person real bad. Uh,
So
uh,
like Hex, Hold Person, Mel's Acid Arrow, Shadow Blade. Oh god, I love Shadow Blade. All right. This is a
I
spell.
too love Shadowblade. For others who love Shadowblade, prepare yourself for the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook, because I wrote an entire series of illusion spells based on this concept.
I absolutely adore this spell, and it's like something that I think is like, pretty kind of no duh for a Gish to pick up. Um, like it's 2d8, right? 2d8 psychic damage it deals.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
okay. This is just such a sick looking
And
like
it has the light property, so
yeah.
so you can dual wield with it if you want to.
Uh I
Just
just
saying.
I love Shadowblade. There's um so okay. So you kind of got an idea of what the spirits can do for you. Was there anything you wanted to get further into that specifically?
Um, I mean, not terribly. I mean, the all of the spirits have the one feature that usually grants a cantrips and or proficiencies, and then all give 16 spells. Some don't get full like ninth level progression just because but there weren't spells that fit the concept, but those get more early level spells.
Yeah.
But all of them get exactly 16.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get back.
And by the way, Michael Cullen in the chat, yes, you're thinking with portals. Yeah, you're starting to
Exorcist.
understand the synergies I built into everything in this class. Because Exorcism plus Vengeful plus Warrior, if you want a single target nuker, that's a great single target nuke build.
Yeah. Uh um so in speaking on his versatility, right?
Um,
Um
yeah, an Amish Rambo, real quick. I like writing dual subclass architecture into my classes. So the spirit guides aren't really subclasses. The classes actual subclasses called spiritual practices that we'll get into at level 2.
yeah.
Uh, but I like being able to in build diversity into my classes, just to make sure like that no two of the same people will pretty much ever create the same build with one of my classes. So I just love people being able to personalize and customize
Yeah.
to their heart's content.
It's that modularity, right? Because like you like the character
Yeah.
expression that people can get across. And I think that there's a lot more character or a lot more player buy-in whenever they see this and they're just like, oh, the potential with this, right? Like that's why I wrote Portable Storefront to be that way, where I'm like, there you go. You can just you fill your shop with whatever, and people are like, oh my god, wait, what? And yeah, um, so I love the modularity with that. Um, Now, here with the second level, there is something that there's a specific question I've got about subclasses that remind me of that. Adept Ritualist. Whenever you cast a Shaman Ritual spell that takes you only 1 minute longer to cast the spell, instead. Oh wait, sorry. Whenever you cast the Shaman Ritual spell, it takes you only 1 minute longer to cast the spell instead of 10 minutes. I remember whenever we were talking about this, I pointed this out because it was at a later level, right? Like 10th or something. Now you moved it up to 2nd, and because I looked at it and thought, wow, this is something that is honestly, I look at it and think it's just a quality of life change.
It can be, but it's also not.
How do you figure?
Okay, so in general, this is just a really, really nice out of combat, good
Yeah.
stuff. And then you realize when you look into the spells themselves that a
Their
lot of the really
durations.
nice
Oh,
new shaman spells
yeah.
have a duration of 10 minutes. So
Okay.
the ability to cast something every in only 1 minute but have it last 10 minutes is very good.
Yeah.
Um, so like the new apparition spells, you can cast those before combat with this feature and potentially have them up while you are exploring a dungeon so that they'll be up when you enter combat. And that is a very powerful thing.
The prep is so much easier. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
right. This is
It benefits your preparation very hard.
huh. It's it's funny because like I guess for okay. Wow. Yeah, you're right. This is
In
totally
a way, it's like you can always have one of your apparition spells up if you have it prepared. Because when you know you only have 1 minute left in the spell, you can begin casting the ritual again.
so it's just like you've got a ghost buddy hanging out with you.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
1 minute of downtime for every 10 minutes of spell if you for a bunch of these ritual spells.
which there's a
And
chance
I
that
did that very intentionally.
yeah. Okay, and there's a chance. Well, that's up to 1 minute. Okay. Of
Yeah,
the,
there are certain ones. Guiding apparition is the level one, is the first level. That one I intentionally made sure it didn't work super well
right.
with it, but all of the higher level apparition spells last 10 minutes.
That's such a focused change, like a focused. How do you want to put it? Wait, does it cast up to 10 minutes? There you go. See, yeah. All right, you thought of everything. Okay. this,
So Eli on Mars, I think this dude might have thought about this class a little bit. This is
yeah,
what nearly 2 years of development time does.
yeah. Very very important question here. One that I think that a lot of creators should really think about a little bit more. Nicholas Zanoga asked, Ross Leiser, would you recommend this class to a new player? Let's
If
say
that player,
brand new. Let's say brand new.
yeah, if you're talking like a fresh, never rolled up a character before player, I would say you can if you explain to them in detail how ritual casting works.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in general, ritual spellcasters are harder to play. Like they are very daunting for a new player to pick up if they've never seen or played a game of D&D before.
Right.
And sometimes there is an added layer of complexity when you add options, and I fully recognize that.
Yeah.
I recognize it with the accursed. Like I would not recommend the accursed for a new player,
No, no, no.
like a fresh off the boat player. I would definitely wouldn't recommend Odic
Right.
for a fresh off the boat player. But I'm okay with that because the sculptor is a great introduction to D&D class.
Right.
The elementalist is a great fresh off the boat class. So I'm okay with some of my other classes. Like you wouldn't teach a person how to play D&D with wizard either. Because wizards got way too much going on.
There's just
But
they can get a little bit overwhelmed with the options.
yeah, so I would say the shaman would make a great second or third character for someone who's relatively new to the game.
Yeah.
But I would not recommend it for a first character.
And there's even like base classes that I would still say, like, if there was someone that was brand new to the game, I've even pushed people away from sorcerer. Like, just with managing meta magic, I'm like, that's a pretty important choice, and there's a lot of power that comes from that. And if I don't want to force you into a choice with it, and like, I'm like, man, if you don't pick twin spell, like, but there can be just a little bit to manage with that, and you have to really know spellcasting
Mhm.
to make sorcerer really, really work. You know.
I,
Um,
I love Sorcerer. It is like the more I've played it, the more it has become my favorite class in the PHP.
mm,
Especially like for myself to play, just because there is so much hidden gameplay with Sorcerer, and I do have a math brain, Bram last
oh
name.
yeah,
So
very.
I'm a math major. I love Sorcerer. So yeah, I have a math education degree, so I do love myself some math. But yeah, Sorcerer, I can understand why people don't like Sorcerer,
Yeah.
um, and don't see why it's good in comparison to some of the other classes.
I just with sorcerer, it's like I like the strategy behind it. I like the. I mean, the narrative is super cool. Like, not only is it just you evoke the magic from within, all that stuff. Like you are the magical thing, right? But like you can twist the magic. You can like sorcerer is like you want to take spells and play with them like clay. That's why I adore that class. I just haven't had a player that I think is like brand new to the game that I was like, yeah, check out sorcerer. It's usually like barbarian's real easy to pilot, man. Like you get in and you hit stuff hard. Like I'm not worried about new players with a barb or a fighter, um, or really cleric either. But
Amish Rambo, I spent 50 hours developing the formulas for the Odex spell cost chart to make that work. I spent 50 hours doing that. So I would not say it was a moderate pain in the ass. That was
right.
a major pain in the ass. But I did it fueled entirely by spite for the Reddit community.
um, so Michael Cullen asked, "How does Shaman's ritual casting compare to the Order of Scribes Wizard?" Um, I, I'm not super sure. I know what the comparison he's asking about here specifically. Um, I, would you be able to elaborate on that?
I mean, I haven't paid a ton of attention to Order of Scribes Wizard because I don't think it's something I would ever really want to play,
Mm,
personally for myself.
God, I love it.
Um, uh, I mean, I like the flavor. I don't like the mechanics. Um,
I, I
uh,
I just think it feels like such a
yeah.
cool, like kind of vanilla-ish wizard, and like if you just want to be like the spellbook wizard, there's something I love about it. Oh, when you cast it as a ritual, you can use the spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes to it. Okay, so I think that's the big thing that he's asking about right there. Um,
Okay. There is a feature that lets you do that
yeah,
in the Shaman.
that that
Um,
you wrote before WotC did, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
did technically write that before WotC released this.
um, so okay, this is the big question I had about subclass specific, and that is you put it subclass at second level, and I remember us having an interesting conversation about why homebrewers put class subclasses at specific levels, either first, second, or third. Why specifically was it that
Hmm.
you chose second, and what was that observation that you had about like why wizard and druid puts it at second?
Okay. So pretty much, I'm just going to go first, second, third.
Okay,
If you're putting a subclass at first level, it's because it is absolutely core to the narrative
yeah,
of your class. Like sorcerer gets subclass at first level because their magic comes from their sorcerer's origin, which is their subclass.
right,
Warlock gets their subclass at first level because their magic comes from the deal they've made with their patron. Uh, but other classes, uh, just if you're not going to put a spellcaster subclass at first level, you should put it at second level because, and Bard is the exception that proves the rule here. Uh, because at third level, you're getting a pretty massive power spike in that you are getting a 50 you're literally doubling your number of available spell slots and you're getting access to second level spells. That is an enormous power spike, and you really shouldn't put too much there. And HP strong, I am talking about full spellcasters here.
Yeah.
I think that half casters and marshals are a different thing entirely here. So pretty much subclasses, I would always put them somewhere between first and third. So first, if like the source of your character's power is coming from your subclass. Second, for full spellcasters. And then third, in general, is a really, really good level for most half casters and martialists because there's a lot of building blocks you have to do for a martialist class to really get their stuff going. Now I broke my own advice here in two of the classes I've written, Sculptor and Accursed, because once again the source of either their magic in the Accursed's case and their martial style in the Sculptor's case come from something that's integral to their identity at level 1.
Right.
So that's why I broke those rules there. But I broke the rules, but for the same reason that Sorcerer and Warlock broke the rules for full spellcasters.
And I'm kind of thinking that like I might have to do something like that for the Sovereign that like I've been kicking around, because like what makes you a Sovereign is that you were appointed a position of power inside of a governmental body. So I'm like,
sorry.
Oh,
sorry, just HP strong. I'm sorry to interrupt, Taryn.
Oh no, you're good.
Paladin, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Paladin should have gotten their subclass at level 1.
Yeah.
That's one of my strong feeling things. For some reason I didn't think about that when you asked the question, but yes. Paladin, I even made a Twitter post about this that got a stupid number of likes compared to the normal number of likes my posts get. Paladin should have gotten their subclass at level 1 because their magic comes from their Sacred Oath. And a bunch of their powers come from their Sacred Oath, or it should have been at second level at the same time they got their spell casting.
Right. Yeah. But you know, with the I was thinking, whoop, I think you glitched out. You there? Did we lose you, Ross?
Stupid stuff again.
Oh.
Discord's doing stupid stuff again.
There you are. Hey, we got you back. Yeah, like with the Sovereign, I'm like, maybe that's part of my issue with it right now is I'm like, well, you being appointed as you having this prestigious rank is what gave you your power, or what allows you to do things like this authority feature and all this other stuff. But I'm like, it's also one that I'm wanting to make a full martialist, and we don't have a martialist in D&D that gets a first level subclass, you know. So I'm like, I gotta work around that.
I think the question then you have to ask yourself is the authority something that was granted to them, or is it something that they have inherently?
Well,
because I'm assuming your subclass is like the type of sovereign they are, like who they rule over, what they rule over.
It's your courts. You're like, so there's gonna be like the Seelie court, the Unseelie court, the Ordning. So like, you know, there's so many different like kingdoms to like base it off of. I was like, that has to be the subclass.
So do their powers come from that position, or does it come from their force of personality?
And that's where I'm like, I'm still kicking it around to see. As soon as I get this core done, I'm gonna be able to figure out like exactly where that needs to sit. You know, I'll talk about the software more whenever I actually do a live stream on it. But yeah, the core on this.
These are the type of things I think about when I'm determining like when subclasses come in, what spellcasting abilities things are, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. How would you compare the Shaman to the Circle of Spirits Druid from the Complete Devout Handbook? That's from Mr. Hat and Clogs.
Great name. But yes, I do agree with Zeke Julian here. Pretty much Circle of Spirits is more like you're getting nature magic and using that to connect with spirits, whereas the Shaman is much more about I learned rituals and connected with spirits, and that's where my power is coming from. So it's different sources of where the power comes from, and thereby different interactions with the spirits themselves.
Cool. Okay, so one of the things I really like is this roleplay tip. I mean, just a little piece of advice uh, to anybody that's interested in playing something like this. And like it might be kind of confusing. I think like this would have helped out kind of like Beastmaster, right? Like, does the DM control the animal? Do I roleplay this beast? What's going on? So having this
Hmm.
is just kind of a nice like, okay, it's cool that you're thinking about how this is managed at the table. You know, who's actually playing this thing out. Um, and if I remember right, did you? It's like DM, right? Basically, the DM should have this spirit function as an NPC, right?
Really.
Do what?
So I mean, there's an option for that. I mean, there's the two paragraphs are really the first paragraph is just like the first full paragraph, I should say,
Yeah.
not the beginning paragraph, but I guess the second paragraph. That paragraph, the who can see your spirit guides, is about how they present when you channel them. Is it like Shaman King, where they're manifesting as like armor and weapons? I'm talking about the Shaman King anime, by the way. I'm dating myself
Oh.
with that. Um, and or do they appear as separate entities? Do they appear as like an aura around yourself? And then the paragraph after that is how much personality do your spirit guides have when you channel them? Like, are they just like basically their personality stays on the other side, and their power is just being granted to you and their perception, or are they full characters? And it's really just about being respectful of your party and your DM and having that conversation of how much presence do we want your spirits to have when they're being channeled beyond
Right.
your abilities. And Eli on Mars, yes, they can be your stand if you really want them to be.
Like channel divinity or form of dread? From Zeke Julian. I mean, form of dread is a transformation. Well, I guess it could possibly make sense that like your spirit takes on the form of like spiritual armor or uh
It's yeah, it's how do you want to be? How do you want it to present? Talk with your DM about like how you want these things to present. There's a lot of options, and I didn't want to limit anyone. So it's up to you how your character interacts with your spirits.
the I just realized I was almost going to move on, and I was like, oh my god, wait, I just mentioned the subclasses, and we didn't even talk about them. Okay, so
Yes,
you've included 5 subclasses in here, and
yes,
then you just released a new one over on your Patreon, which
yeah.
yeah, that
So,
looks yeah. So
so for those who want context, I started a program back in March on my Patreon in an attempt to entice more people to join. So I'm 100% plugging right now, where every month I do outlandish designs, is what the program is called, um, where pretty much I begin the month by asking patrons for suggestions. What do they want to see me design? I pick my favorites of those suggestions, and then I do a selection poll, and then whatever wins that, I will design for the month and release exclusively for free to every one of my patrons. No additional cost, I should say, because you got to have to be at least a $1 per month member. But really, it's only the $1, and you can be involved in the entire process.
right,
So if you want to get all the previous Outlandish designs and be able to contribute and benefit from the new ones, including the new story keeping spiritual practice for the shaman that literally just got released this morning, thanks to Taryn getting the layout done on it very quickly. By the way, he's good at his job. Uh,
oh,
yes,
miniature collector
yes, the
said,
shameless plug. Drop the link.
yeah.
Drop the link.
I think
I'm grabbing it right now.
yeah, I think Patreon is. Wait, is it Patreon not allowed in chat? I just need to give you the ability to drop stuff in chat. I need to like I don't know if that is that a role I need to give you or something. Um, we'll figure that out. But yes, I mean your Outlandish Adventure Productions over on Patreon, and
Yes.
I'll add that to the description of this for the VOD at least. Um,
Thank
but
you.
so story keeping, but now in this one we have exorcism, sympatheticism, totemism, ward chanting, or witch medicine. Um, you want to talk briefly about the inspiration behind those five?
Yes. So war chanting is actually the concept that inspired the entire class for all intents and purposes, because this is the one that's really, really close to my heart, because this is the Cherokee form of shamanism. Because in Cherokee, they have war shamans that would actually march on the front lines, either playing music or singing, and would get right up in the middle of the battle with everybody else. And so Cherokee being really my inspiration for this entire class, that's the one that's near and dear to my heart. Then for witch medicine, this is inspired by witch doctoring, and not the witch doctoring that you might see in popular media, because that is horribly demonized propaganda that has been brought forth from like the late 1800s, early 1900s, which is all about. So that popular form is all about necrocism, devil worship, summoning bad things. No, witch medicine or witch doctors, the purpose of them existing was to cure people of dark magic. They doctor the things that witches do to people. So that's, and then they also are known for their poultices, potions, all that kind of stuff. So that's what this subclass is based on. They literally brew their spirit guide spells into potions for people to drink and cast. And they also get the ability at a much later level to remove magic from people, like that's affecting people with the
Wish remedy.
remove curse and the dispel magic spell. So we'll get more into the subclasses later, in particular. But witch medicine, I brought sensitivity readers on to make sure that my work was respectfully and accurately representing the cultures that I wanted to respectfully and accurately portray. Yeah, mage doctor, exactly. So then also with totemism is based on Pacific Northwest beliefs that everyone has a kindred spirit and everything has a kindred spirit, and they build like things to house the spirits and honor them, and that's what totem poles are. So it this alludes to that quite a bit, but it also brings in some elements from the World of Warcraft Shaman, where you can just summon
It
totems
had
onto the
to.
battlefield to get some really good area control.
It absolutely had to do that. Like you know, like
It had to.
that's
It had
such
to.
it's such an iconic thing for like the image of a shaman. And it's an interesting and unique idea that, you know, Blizzard kind of introduced in what it meant to be a shaman. And I think like honestly, every shaman moving forward has got to have that kind of, because otherwise, like, what is totemism like mechanically in D&D, other than maybe a passive buff in this one area? So it kind of has to work in this way, right? Where like you're able to drop these like sentry buffs. Yeah, right. Yeah. Um,
um, so, and then if we want to move up to sympatheticism, this is based on African diaspora religions like voodoo and hoodoo. And initially, I did a whole bunch of research on this one because I know this one, like I knew from the way it was portrayed that there was no possible way that the way it's portrayed in popular media was actually accurate.
right.
So what I did was I did a whole bunch of research into hoodoo and voodoo and vodou and vodun and hodu and all of these this huge array of African diaspora religions. And I initially called this subclass hoodoo, and based on what the research I did told me was hoodoo. And then I brought Lynn Brown, the sensitivity reader that did sensitivity reading for both witch medicine and sympatheticism, who is a Black woman who lives in New Orleans and is actual practitioner of voodoo. And she said, I'm not sure what you did, but it seems like you missed a lot. You mixed a lot of things up here.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh, well, what I get wrong? Well, what you're doing here isn't hoodoo. It's closer to voodoo. I'm like, okay. But I would also encourage you not to use the names of real religions
Yeah.
in your work, because you are going to be adding a fantasy element to this. Um, and you want to make sure that your fantasy element doesn't distort it too much. And I'm like, you know what? You are 100% correct. So I rewrote the entire subclass based on her recommendations and did some more research uh on making and about and voodoo was really like the idea of sympathetic magic. So I did much more research on sympatheticism, and that's what this subclass became. And yes, it does use a focus. And yes, and also calling sympatheticism also does make it represent more cultures than just African diaspora religions. But the major thing that I discovered, especially about voodoo, was it's extremely rare that really anything is cursed with voodoo.
Right.
More often, they use the dolls, the gree or the effigies, to pin blessings to people's essences with sympathetic magic, not curses. So I needed to make sure that that element was also addressed in
Right.
sympatheticism subclass. So this class can either bless or curse, and has a really nice duality to it because of that.
And and that's a because I know someone had mentioned earlier, there was I had the same kind of struggle whenever I was writing the War Dancer. I even hit you and Benjamin up, and I was like, I've got a lot of people that are really really requesting that I make a Haka dancer, that I make a subclass that is like the Haka War Dancer, and I was like, I kept getting pushback because I was like, well, it's going to be, I was going to make a war dancer subclass that people could just kind of broadly paint if they wanted to make it, based off of Haka, they can do that. But war dancing is like in a lot of different cultures. So instead of doing like, yeah, specifically it's going to be this, I was just like, I wanted to paint with a much more like broad brush. And in that way, it was like I'm not going to be cartoonizing any like real world cultures, and I think that's what's like, you know, sensitivity readers are great at helping you not just to like, um, I think the big thing is yes, you want to make sure that your content doesn't offend somebody, but the big strength to it, I think, is making sure that it's faithful to
Yeah.
possible inspiration. And
Mhm.
this is one that I think that from hearing everything that you've said, um, it, I think some people might be expecting one thing going into this where they're like, oh yeah, voodoo thing. And then they see it and then they're like, oh, is it what I was expecting? What's your kind of thought on that? People that might be thinking, okay, voodoo shaman, that's what I want to do with this. What do you like?
I mean, technically, if you really want to, you can. If you want to, I mean, it's not my favorite. I made it theoretically possible, because the malevolent spirit exists, the vengeful spirit exists. If you want to use them, they're
Okay,
the darker spirits that allow people to make evil shamans. And like, if you want to do that, you can. I wouldn't like encourage you to do it
right.
because you are perpetuating a horrific stereotype
Pretty
invented
bad.
to
Yeah.
demonize an entire culture and religion.
Yeah.
Like, you can absolutely use malevolent spirit with a different subclass. Um, so just consider why you're making something, why
Yeah.
you're making that character, why you want to use that inspiration. Just really examine that and ask yourself if it's worth it.
Right. Um. So that was sympatheticism. Um.
And then finally, we have Exorcism,
Exorcism.
which is the very aggressive, basically gets its own form of a hunter's mark slash hex that it can apply to things, and is all about banishing extraplanar invaders back to where they came from.
So we have detect good and evil, protection from good and evil. Okay, so what's your opinion on protection from good and evil,
I
or
mean,
evil and good?
it's a yeah, it's kind of a weird spell.
Right.
Because it affects like a very niche case of things. What's bizarre to me that I figured out while writing this subclass is that detect evil and good affect all like sorry, that dispel evil and good
Mm,
affects all the same things as these two spells, except it doesn't include aberrations like the other two spells do. And that
weird.
was bizarre to me.
Huh. Yeah, you would think that there would be consistency with the theme, right? Like, I mean, they're all basically the same family. Uh, evil and good. What? That's a thing. Okay. So you said okay, protection from Fey and undead. Celestials. Wow, dispel evil and good does not affect aberrations, but
No,
weird. I wonder
no, it doesn't.
why. Um,
Yeah, I wrote that into the capstone. I'm like, yeah, this also affects aberrations.
that's bizarre. Huh.
I know I'm not sure if it's a mistake because it feels like a mistake.
Maybe yeah, it's just not consistent. Huh. Um, I do. Protection from evil and good is a spell that I'm like, oh man, it like it can't be charmed or frightened by celestials, aberrations, elementals,
It
fey, fiends, and undead as a
yeah.
first level spell. That's so good.
Yeah, it very heavily cheeses things with certain types of creatures.
Yeah, like, but I never hear anyone talking about this spell. Like, yeah,
That's because it's not usually relevant until very late game,
that's fair.
and
That's
and
fair.
by that time, most people have gotten distracted by the shininess of the high level spells
Yeah,
that they forget about how incredibly efficient protection from evil and good is.
yeah. Um, so all right, guided brain. Oh, and part of each of these, like scaffolding wise, um, part of
Yeah.
each of these is
When I
that
was designing every single class, every single subclass, so pretty much what I did was I wanted to make sure that because you can't cast your ritual spells with your spell slots, and you're not always going to have the exact same spirit guide kind of equipped for
right,
spell slot usage, I wanted to make sure that you always had a consistent use for your spell slots from your subclass. So every single one gets a spell slot oriented feature at level 2, and then at some point in their subclass progression has a specific way of interacting with your spirit guides that you're channeling. For exorcism, they augment your banishing brand, your banishing mark. For sympatheticism, you can actually target the things that you have that you like. You can use the tether between the poppet and the creature that you have it linked to for the sympathetic magic to auto target that creature, no matter how far away they are from you, no matter if you can see them or not. Like you can target them through the poppet. Then for totemism, it's about you improve the power of the totem effect you're using by your connection by what spirit guide you're channeling. For war chanting, it adds power to your war chant, and then for witch medicine, of course, the interaction there is you're literally brewing your spirit guide spells into potions. So you can always have a mix as long as you prepare. Preparation is going to come up so much when we're talking about this
right.
class. So you can always prepare um, your, you can always have prepared whatever mix of spells from your spirit guides that you want, as long as you prepare it. So as long as you like over the course of several days channel different spirit guides and be like, ooh, I really want this spell to be able to for people to cast, and just brew a whole bunch of potions with all that.
um, so it was interesting. There was a conversation going on the other day in the Discord server where we were talking about alchemy and why, kind of like why Alchemist Artificer just doesn't really hit the mark. Um, what? So my thought has just mostly been that people want a lot of modularity out of alchemy, as they should, and that the alchemist artificer just doesn't really do that. You know, um,
Yeah.
how do you think that witch medicine kind of expressed the idea of that kind of modularity, the kind of you know what I mean, the kind of thing that people are really expecting out of alchemy, that kind of narrative.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
I mean, the thing with the alchemist artificer is it's all too random.
Mm,
Like you don't have control over what kind of potions you're making, no matter how high of a level really that you are in that subclass, which is a major flavor fail because you feel like a 15th level alchemist
right.
would know how not to make their potions explode accidentally by that point. And like it's flavor fail for me. I mean, I don't like several elements of that subclass, or really, there's. I could rant for days about how many design issues the artificer class has, from like a design standpoint. Not necessarily a character creation standpoint, but from a design standpoint, there was a lot of problems with that class. Um, but so the thing here is like I wasn't trying to capture an alchemist kind of feel with the witch medicine subclass. I think I did accidentally, uh, but, but really, what I wanted to do was be like, okay, you are making spiritual magic infused poultices and tinctures for people to drink from using your spirit guide spells. So that's the flavor I was trying to capture, and I think just through that, I created something that like could portray an alchemist character. And also just for Zeke Julian, he asked, sorry, assuming
Yeah,
pronouns,
yeah,
but
that's
Zeke
fine.
Julian asked, can the puppet be used across dimensions? No, it cannot. They must be on the same plane of existence as you, for you to maintain the link with that feature.
All right. Let's get back up into the
But yeah,
base
that's kind
class.
of like the cliff notes on all of the subclasses. We talk about those a bit more in depth on an earlier live stream if
I
you want to check those out.
Yeah, we've talked about this. No, wait, I think I've only had you on once to talk about Shaman in the past, and we were still like in the midst of layout stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but
Also the full preview, like the entire class, is available for preview on the DM's Guild page. So if you want to read these things slower than we're talking about them, you can read the entire class right now if you want to.
yeah. Um, so see beyond. Getting now that we've hit that point where I'm like, oh yeah, we said 2 hours. So see beyond. Third level shaman feature. Your connection to the spirit world allows your vision to pierce the veil between realities. You always have the see invisibility spell prepared as a shaman ritual spell, and it doesn't count against the number of shaman ritual spells you can prepare each day. So, uh, opinion on, because I feel like I try to avoid this sometimes, but honestly, like I guess I don't really have any kind of bias against this. But features as base class spells. When is the right time to do that?
So one of the major interesting things I ran into with this class is certain things that felt like they belonged on the shaman spell list couldn't be on the shaman spell list because they weren't
Their
rituals.
rituals. Yeah.
So for see invisibility, I knew this had to go on the shaman spell list. Like like this spell literally lets you see into the border ethereal, and that is where ghosts and most spirits live or can cross through into the material plane. So the shaman needed to be able to interact with that.
Right.
So in general, I do try to avoid giving spells to spellcasters.
Yeah.
Like for martialists, I completely understand it. But spells to spellcasters as base class features I believe you should only include them if they otherwise, for some reason, cannot be attached to that class's spell list. So for example, like in the Elementalist, there is a control style that grants certain higher level spells that they otherwise would not be able to cast because they're half casters, and they grant that by causing you to use one of your spell slot resources as well, so it's not too overbearing.
Right.
But in general, I would not give that kind of thing. I would not give a spell to a spellcaster unless for some reason they couldn't have it by any other means.
Right. Well, and in unique situations like with Warlock, right, with Mystic Arcanum, uh, they get that Mystic Arcanum is specifically worded in a way to where, we've kind of figured out that like 6th level and above spells are just way too good to have on a short rest refresh. So it's
Yeah.
you
Oh
will
yeah.
you will not see a class option at 20th level and below that ever allows you to cast a 6th level or above spell. Maybe unless it's like super specific about the spell and the situations. Once for short rest. So so in that situation for Warlock, it makes sense. Uh, but yeah, so with this being restricted to ritual spells, it also makes sense that like, okay, yes, this being, you know where I'm going with that. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so standard ability score improvements, cantrip versatility, since Tasha's
Yep.
is a thing.
It's worded the exact same ways you see in Tasha's. I just had to add it because I knew there would be complaints if it
Exactly. Call from beyond. 5th level shaman feature. You can call upon spirits that have crossed over to the other side to briefly re inhabit their abandoned vessels. You always have the Speak with Dead spell prepared as a shaman ritual spell. It doesn't count against the number of shaman ritual spells you can prepare each day. Of course, just like, I mean, there's a lot of spells in D&D that I think you would totally expect on a shaman. So much so that I'm like, why is a shaman not already a thing in this game? Like they have all this narrative that it's so very clearly like they kind of pulled from shamans in fiction. Why
did.
isn't it a thing? But what? So what are your opinions on Speak with Dead? I love this spell personally. Like
I adore it. I mean, I can see why it's a third level spell. Like being able to ask 5 questions. Like for the longest time, I thought it was 3, but then I read it recently. I'm like, 5 questions.
right,
You can get a lot of information out of 5 questions.
right,
And at least in my campaigns, I don't run terribly combat oriented campaigns. I run much more like role play centric with some exploration, and then very few very intense combats is my DMing style.
mm,
So like knowledge is very much power in my campaigns, and villains will go out of their way to get knowledge about the party and leverage that knowledge against them. So I encourage my players to try to do the same. So in my campaign, Speak with Dead is a very powerful spell.
yeah.
Uh,
I think
so
in
I'm a big
most
fan of the spell.
campaigns, like, hey, are you really worried about doing non-lethal damage if you have Speak with Dead? You know what I mean? Like, I
I mean, the one thing is the undead, if they don't like you, they don't have to answer the questions.
that's
So so
fair.
so I so if you're gonna kill them nicely.
Yeah. Charm person right before you just yeah. Uh, all right. Spirited Ritual. 6th level shaman feature. You can tap into the other side to channel raw spiritual power into your ritual casting. When you cast a shaman ritual spell, you can cast it at a level equal to your highest level spell slot. You still don't expend the spell slot when you cast a ritual spell with this feature. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. What's the big power here? Like,
So the big power is like I wrote almost every single new uh ritual spell to scale
mm-hmm,
for this feature and a feature we'll talk about in a little bit. Uh, because like I wanted there aren't really many ritual spells to scale.
right,
And it's odd to me because I love upcasting. Who doesn't love upcasting?
right.
Like I feel like every spell, including the non-damaging cantrips, should scale up in some way. With you're either a higher level spellcaster or if you are scaling up. So
Yeah.
if you cast, say, a guiding apparition or a harrowing apparition or any of the apparition spells with this feature, you're gonna get a nice bonus.
It's yeah, because it's like it's funny because I keep thinking warlock, warlock, warlock. It's like kind of the power behind warlocks, like the fact that they have a limited number of spell slots. Sure, the spellcasting is restricted, but it's powerful in the fact that it upscales and everything. It's a bit tricky on the warlock because if you aren't casting a spell that scales up, it kind of feels like you're doing it wrong. You know, um,
Yeah. I
like
mean, it feels so awful if you're a warlock to burn a fifth level spell slot to cast detect magic.
right,
Like, I mean, and everyone knows how useful detect magic is, but it's a
right,
ritual for a reason. The
exactly.
fact that they gated ritual casting for the warlock behind a packed boon and an invocation feels horrible.
It's odd. Is there like a good? Is there a? Did you and Benjamin ever write a ritual casting based warlock?
Um, I don't think we did. I think there was. I think we were really thinking about it.
I think
And I
there's some cool
almost went that
space there.
direction when I was writing Archmage, but
Ah,
instead we used the flexible casting for that because we felt it was a more mechanically interesting way to go about it. And also because that invocation exists, you don't want to step on the toes of that.
right, right. Well,
Like it's one of those things where because something already technically exists for it, you can't really step on the toes.
like I'm also kind of the opinion that like being able to use charisma for your attack and damage rolls would have made a better invocation rather than like the basis for hexblade. You
Don't get me
don't.
started on Hexblade.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the decisions behind Hexblade. I'll go too long. I will
Okay.
go too long.
Okay, okay. All right. Ritual potency. By the way, chat, we had kind of planned on this live stream only being about 2 hours, uh, just because it's going to be a lot to kind of clip and everything. And I know Ross is busy. I'm busy with some stuff. So if you have
I
some
mean, luckily
questions,
there's not a ton of base class features left, so we can speed run.
yeah. So if you have some questions, go ahead and put them in chat. Ross and I will be happy to kind of get to them in the last like 15 or so minutes of stream. But we're willing to go a little bit over. Ritual potency, 8th level shaman feature. Your expertise in channeling the power of the spirit world makes your minor rituals more potent. When you cast a first level shaman ritual spell, you can cast it at second level. It doesn't expend a spell slot when you cast it this way. When you reach certain levels in this class, your rituals continue to increase in power. Once you reach 12th level in this class, when you cast a first or second level shaman ritual spell, you can cast it at third level. Once you reach 16th level in this class, when you cast a shaman, so there's scaling built into there. Uh,
Yeah.
so all right, this immediately following what was it? Spirited ritual, um, expertise. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure I'm remembering this right. Um, when you cast a shaman ritual spell, you cast it at a level higher. Oh, that's right, because that has restricted uses, and then this is just a base kind of. Oh, okay, okay, that's right.
Yeah, so Spirited Ritual is your once per day nuke, where you're just like, I'm gonna cast. I mean, Spirited Ritual is functionally balanced the exact same way that what's it called? The Wizard's Arcane Recovery is.
Ah,
It's basically an additional spell slot.
mm-hmm.
Uh and like it scales in almost the exact same way that Arcane Recovery does with the number or the total level of spell slot you can get back. Ritual potency is much more just like you are the ritual expert. No one should be better at ritual casting than you. So this is like literally your minor rituals just passively are going to get more and more and more powerful as you level up as a shaman character.
And it's like the base level that they're cast at is just it's that skill floor thing, right? But this is like a spell floor in a way, a power floor, we
Yeah.
could say.
I mean, so you still can cast them at a lower level, but why would you?
Right, right. Um, Hastened Ritual. This was another one that we had swapped, or that you had swapped out for Adept Ritualist.
Yeah, so yeah, initially, Hastened Ritual was the second level class feature and could be used twice per day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did some playtesting of higher level shamans and realized that that feature was utterly broken the way I had written it. Like it worked fine at level 2. Like it didn't break anything at level 2. It felt good. But then if you could cast possessive apparition as an action without a spell slot, a 7th level spell twice per day, it got absurd. So I moved it to a much higher level and made it only once per day in response to that. But it also let me move Adept Ritualist down to second level where it's a lot more interesting.
So with Hasten Ritual, you can perform your Shaman Ritual spells with acute speed. When you cast a Shaman Ritual spell, you can do so with the spell's normal casting time instead of it taking 1 minute longer to cast the spell. You still don't expend a spell slot when you cast a ritual spell with this feature, and once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So, pretty easy to see why there are some rituals that may cause issues with that. But uh, so what is the level adjustment doing that made you feel like, okay, it's much better here? Um,
Um, so really, it was just like I didn't want people to go in with Hastened Ritual and be like, okay, this is pretty good. Like at second level, like then they see it scale up and they're like, oh wow, this is getting really good. I really wanted, if Hastened Ritual was going to be a thing, I wanted it to feel like the power level it would eventually hit. And so being able to basically cast a 5th level spell for free once per day feels pretty good
right.
on Hastened Ritual. And then immediately when you see I'm casting 5th level spell once per day, and you're realizing, oh wow, I'm eventually going to be able to cast a 7th level spell for free once per day. Okay. So I think it feels better here than it did at second level because it sets an expectation much better than it did before.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, so improved medium, 11th level shaman feature. You can perform the ritual to channel a new spirit guide whenever you finish a short or long rest. Better prep, like
Better prep,
being able to just swap that
faster
out.
prep.
Yeah, uh, yeah. Is that? It's almost like. I mean, really, is there another? Wait, am I thinking? I'm gonna feel dumb. There's not another short rest prep class, is there? It,
I mean, no, not really. No, you can't switch your spell slots out on a short rest. So switch your prepared spells out on a short rest with pretty
so
much anybody.
so that's a level of versatility. Now, I'm glad you put it at 11th, but it's funny because like I don't think the power of that is actually pretty apparent. That's like unique. Um, it, in a way, like I praise a lot of cleric spellcasting because it's just so flexible, and this is like another. It's flexible, but at the same time, it's always tied into your spirit. So I think the trade off is like, okay,
So yeah, uh, shamans have very stiff spell casting. They don't get a ton of rituals, which is augmented by the ritual spells that they get access, like the see invisibility and the speak with dead that they always have prepared, and some subclasses give those too. But really, they can't flexibly prepare a large list of spells like any other spellcaster can.
right.
So, especially when you're getting up to these higher levels and other like, and you can really like Swiss Army knife a cleric or a wizard or a druid at the start of a day. You can't do that the same way with shaman because really you're choosing one strict spell list and then a small number of ritual spells. So being able to switch that strict spell list on a short rest makes them feel a lot more comparable to those other spellcasters.
So 6 levels later, you'll get Step Beyond. So this is a 17th level shaman feature. You are so attuned to the other side that you can pass through the boundaries of reality to walk amongst the spirits. You always have the etherealness spell prepared as a shaman ritual spell. It doesn't count against the number of shaman ritual spells you can prepare each day. Again, totally. Like, uh, I wait, is astral projection ritual? I don't think so, right? No.
It is not. No.
Because that's almost kind of what I would be thinking. Like, wait, but astral projection's like a ninth level spell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, um,
I mean, it works on Monk because Monk spends key points to cast it only on themselves, whereas the ninth level version can, in fact, I think, up to 10 creatures. Um,
okay.
so yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I'm always thinking that that's like a single target spell. I keep forgetting that astral projection is like no, it's a group thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the entire party.
that's
Yeah.
right. Uh, oh, and we will get the chat. We got two more features to make it through, and then we are
2 more features, then we'll speed run some of these questions.
yeah. Spirit Nexus, 18th level shaman feature. When you perform the ritual to channel a new spirit guide, you can choose to channel two of your spirit guides simultaneously, gaining the benefits associated with both for as long as you channel them. When you use your action to dismiss a spirit guide you're channeling, you can choose to dismiss one or both spirits. That's that's brave.
This is the big one.
That's big,
Um,
big, big.
yeah, by this point, you will have your full suite of 6 spirit guides, and you can mix and match the hell out of them. There are
Yeah.
so many synergies between 2 spirit guides, between their spell lists, between the effects that I wrote into the subclasses to interact with them. Like, there is some serious shit you can pull off. And that's why this is an 18th level feature. This feature is so much more powerful than you think it is by reading it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it does some absolute bananas bullshit.
But like by
When you
18th.
actually play test it, and I am here for
Yeah.
it.
By 18th it's like I mean, yeah, that's the kind of okay. To me, I want
Yeah,
I want
it's interesting. If you look at standard like class progression, 18th level features are almost always the strongest.
oh yeah.
Oftentimes stronger than the 20th level capstone, which is how I knew I could put this right here.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's such a powerful and fun feature if you ever play Lit Level Shaman. I promise you, it is so fun to theory craft the bullshit
Well,
to pull off with spirit guide combos
and it's
with every single subclass.
this is that I think a good capstone is always a 1-2 punch. This is the two punch where you set up a core feature and then that the good 18th or capstone feature is always going to be that one where you feel like, oh cool, I really like this sick feature right here, and then the 18th needs to be the thing that goes, and this is what else you can do with it. Like I love that kind of setup for a class because it shows that not only did you build a cool concept, but you can escalate it even further. I think heavy arms called it the ultimate expression kind of a mentality. You have this cool unique thing you can do, and here it is in full hit the mic, like full fucking bloom. I love that idea. And then the capstone, master ritualist. You always have each ritual spell on the shaman spell list prepared, ignoring the number of shaman ritual spells you can normally prepare each day. Additionally, you regain the use of your hasten ritual when you finish a short or long rest.
Spellcasters
Wow.
have this kind of funny tendency of having weak 20th level capstones, and I say fuck that.
This is actually real quick because Zandy asked this and it was relevant to the last thing. Wait, what's the difference between having the 6 guides and having 2? The difference is those 6 guides, but you're only channeling 1 at a time with medium, and then at 18th
Yeah.
level you get to channel 2 at a time.
So pretty much the narrative of this is you are meeting and developing relationships with more spirit guides as you become a more experienced, more powerful shaman. But up until 18th level, you can only channel 1 of them at a time. At 18th level, boom. Like,
Right.
you're suddenly channeling two of these motherfuckers at the same time, and you're doing some absolute insane stuff.
Uh, Ellie on Mars just said, "Clerics, I get to call my god.
I see
Shaman, I
that.
am my
God.
own god."
Oh my.
um, and the power with that with Spirit Nexus is like, think about that. You double your effective amount of like combat spells that you get here.
Yeah, you have 30. You at this level, if you suddenly jump from having 16 combat spells plus whatever you cast with hastened ritual to having 32.
Yeah.
Like it is like the sudden increase to flexibility is massive.
And like that's
And you get both features at the same time too. So you could actually have like up to 7 cantrips at
mm,
one time, or you could have a whole bunch of proficiencies.
well, like at 20th level, it's funny because it's not a big how do I put it? It's not a numbers by the numbers power spike. It is complete versatility spike. Like
Yeah.
it's just usefulness spike, which is like
Yeah, suddenly preparation gets a whole lot easier because you
yeah.
are so much more flexible.
um, so were there any like before we get to the questions or anything, was there anything specifically about this that you wanted to highlight, or like anything you wanted to say towards the end of the walkthrough?
I mean, I think we've covered pretty much every aspect that I really wanted to hit. Just how much love went into this, and just it was a long process. It was basically from like beginning concepting to when this thing released was more than 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was hardcore in development. So like when I was actually like writing the class features and getting all of this, and oh my God, Sandy, that is a perfect metaphor. It's like having 6 Pokemon on your team and being able to double battle with them. That is exactly what it's like. That is exactly what it's like.
Oh, that's funny. Wow.
So, but like I just this is such a personally meaningful subclass to me because it came from an exploration of my own heritage, and I wanted to put so much love. And I actually like my budget for this class was the biggest I had ever allotted myself for editing and for hiring sensitivity readers and and all and art budget. I went really hardcore on this. I
Yeah.
mean, the sculptor remaster, which I'm working on right now, like has an even larger budget attached to it. So I'm really gambling on putting a lot of production value into my stuff now because I made enough profit on my previous works that I could afford to take that risk.
Right.
And it's so nice to see it paying dividends with the speed that this thing is selling
Yeah.
and all this good stuff. But with that, let's jump into the questions. Uh, so now I know it's not on screen right now, but Nikolai has been so patiently
You're right.
asking the same question again and again and again this entire live stream, which is how do you use the speak true cantrip? Um,
Uh,
Pretty much, it is used for convincing people. Um,
yeah, there we go. Speak true. This is a casting time of one bonus action, range of self. Oh, we
um,
got you back.
I'm back.
All right.
Discord, I shake my fist at me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
uh,
so a lot of parties rely on the use of deception or persuasion to try to convince people, but like for particularly paranoid groups, speak true is great because you can be like, I am actively magically convincing you that I have no interest in lying to you.
right.
By all means, I am magically enhancing your ability to tell that I am telling you the truth. It is a very selfless way of convincing people. So that is how speak true is used.
It's as long as you are being completely honest, there is no reason for you not to use this.
Yeah, there's nothing to worry about as long as you have no intention to lie.
It's it's kind of like it's a strategic form of a social cantrip, where
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, absolutely, if you have nothing to hide, this is just absolutely, you are making sure that that creature believes you, as in that you have nothing to hide, which comes up fairly often. I mean, you know, like I mean, you no
Yeah.
harm parlaying with monsters. Like,
Yeah, I have a particular player in one of my campaigns right now that would love to be able to have access to this cantrip because he constantly accidentally creeps people out. I mean, he's playing it accursed. He's playing
right,
it accursed.
right,
So he would love to be able to say, like, my intentions are genuine. I'm not trying to harm you. I know I look like a diseased, plague ridden, awful person, but I promise you, I'm a doctor.
right. Let me see here. Was that the earliest? Oh, Miniature Collector asked, what subclass would each of you play if you played a shaman? Do you have one in mind?
War chanting, easy. It's the class it's the subclass that I basically wrote the class so that I could play.
Oh, okay. Uh,
So I mean, I would love to play a war chanting shaman that primarily uses a warrior spirit guide. Like that is what I would play if given the opportunity.
I think I would lean pretty hard into like, well, I mean, the whole channel knows I'm a big support kind of player. Totem is
Yeah, and the shaman is very good, and almost every subclass is very good at providing for.
like, I feel like I would lean pretty hard into totemism. I
Oh, you're an area control guy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotcha.
um, well, it was like what I was playing an artificer in that campaign. I was playing with you, and I like the idea of like the Eldritch Cannon, the protection thing, right? I was like, that
If
is
only
so
Eldritch Cannon weren't
significant.
so broken.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That was able to. I mean, it made a third level pugilist able to take down a fourth level pugilist just because of how good those. I mean, it does. It effectively reduces the CR of damage output of any creature by like 1 or 2 levels. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's pretty nuts. But yeah, I
See,
just
I have made no secrets how much I love playing Gishes, how much I love writing Gishes, how and just like I love the mixture of sword and magic, or weapon and magic,
yeah,
specifically melee and magic, is like my truest love if I'm
right.
not playing a full support spellcaster, which I also love. I love playing support casters. So honestly, just War Chanting Shaman checks every single box for me
Right.
in terms of how I love to play.
Shaman's face of your party. Let me see here. Zeke Julian asked, what other class would you multi-class shaman in?
I wouldn't because I have major issues with multiclassing. But if I had to,
Yeah, someone's.
Paladin would be a very powerful multi-class with a shaman. A very powerful multi-class with a shaman.
Ooh, because you're not
But I
really
mean,
worried about.
Paladin with like any full charisma caster is so powerful. I mean,
Yeah,
Sorkadin is the most powerful build in the entire game. So
but you're not super worried about the spell slots that you're going to be using for smite because you can just
yeah,
ritual cast. Oh, that is actually
exactly.
really
It's an
good.
incredibly powerful multi-class. Yeah, it's so good.
Ooh,
I mean, 2 levels Paladin, 18 levels, so you get Spirit Nexus Shaman. That's nuts. That's real powerful.
that's wow. Okay. I mean, I might
Yeah.
have. Dang, yeah. Actually, like, I would probably be tempted to go that route just to see how it played out. Like, huh? That that is a really interesting synergy. Wow, I would not have considered that. Only this class is able to
I mean,
kind of
I
create.
mean, Charisma Caster. If it's a Charisma Caster, it will break if Paladin multiclasses
I know it's so funny
it.
how that
That's
just
just that's just a written rule.
uh yeah. Well, Zandy says druid, but like I'm kind of thinking that like I don't know. Druid also just sits in a weird place for me because like I like the fact that they're branching out and doing more uses for wild shape. Um, but I mean, you being able to rely on a lot of the druid spell casting in order to like kind of make it work with the shaman, it seems narratively like it's a big win. But I think that build might wind up being, unless you did a variant rule of, shaman going wisdom, it might be a little tough to execute on it. But it,
Yeah.
I like the idea. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
the let me see if there was. I want to make sure I get to everybody. I don't want to forget anyone. Show multi-class.
Leo Ferrari, if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, had a really good question. If a character did something to displease or lose favor with the spirits, would you say they'd lose their powers similarly to warlocks and clerics slash paladin oaths?
Hmm.
Um, Technically, yes. Narratively, yes. Should I write that subclass and like an Oathbreaker variant? Probably. Although I will say, kind of a tangent note, Jeremy Crawford has gone on the record actually saying that patrons cannot take the power away from warlocks.
Yeah.
They can choose not to give more power, but once that power belongs to the warlock, it can't be taken back. So you actually can't lose your levels in warlock or lose the powers from your subclass for warlock if you piss off your patron, according to Jeremy Crawford. But paladin, of course, the Oathbreaker subclass does exist.
Yeah. Well, and I like those. I forget. I think Dale Kingsmill called it Shadow class or Shadow subclass. For some reason, but I like the idea. And she was proposing the idea of a pact burner warlock, where it was like you are like foregoing your pact or whatever, and it had features like stolen secrets, where it kind of gave a narrative reason for why you still have your power. It's a cool video. It's a very cool video. One that I was like, I wanted to sit down and kind of like, okay, wait, how can you make this work? What happens to your Eldritch invocations? What happens with your pack? Yeah, that was me going mad with like 5 cups of coffee, just trying to figure out how to make that work. There was Spencer Jackson. Not a question, but I do think that a witch class would potentially work for Constitution spellcasting. If you're maybe serious about it one day, Ross. I saw a certain post that talked about how certain witches get their magic from commanding souls to do their bidding. I've been trying to find that post for the past 2 hours with no luck, though. I think it might have to be like Constitution casting.
I do have an idea I've been kicking around for a long time for a strength-based full spellcaster that I might try to do, just like a muscle wizard.
Well,
that I think would be absolutely hysterical. I kind of put a few ideas from that into the Titan Warlock that I wrote for a Complete Arcanist. But I don't know. I really like writing full spellcasters, especially really weird ones like this in the Odic. So who knows? I might do a strength-based spellcaster at some point. Who knows? I might try to do a con-based at some point too.
I told you that's what the Pallylock is playing in my Icewind Dale campaign, right?
The Titan?
Titan, yeah. He's not being able to like just stash stuff in your stomach was too funny. Like,
oh my god, I had so much fun coming up with that. Just like your stomach is a pocket dimension, right? Because there's so many like Donjon features for those for like the Tarask and the Astral Dreadnought and all that.
Right.
Where if you get eaten, it's a pocket dimension.
Yeah.
So I had so much fun playing with that.
Having that sort of commented. Let me make sure.
Also, DM and Torres asked, how can I get Sensei Ross guidance to improve my homebrew making? I have one, you can hire me. I do consultation work, for $20 an hour, which I think is a pretty good rate for the most part.
Oh yeah.
If I know you well, like with Terran, I will often like just let him set his own rate because he's helped me so much with stuff. But my going rate is $20 an hour. The other way, if you don't want my full attention on stuff and would rather just get like feedback every month or so, on my Patreon there are 2 tiers that you can join, where once a month you can send me a piece of work that you want my opinion and feedback and critique on, and I will give you and it's heavily discounted based on $20 an hour.
Yeah.
Like it's $15 a month if you want me to look at a subclass or a different small homebrew once a month, or $25 a month if you want me to take a look at full classes, and that's incredibly discounted, which is why there's only a few spots for that. But yes, if you want, so those are the two methods: hire me or join my Patreon at the $15 or $25 tiers, depending on what kind of content you want me to critique.
There you go. Okay, Nikolai. Okay, yeah, we got enough. I think we got time for one or two more. Nikolai Zanoga asked, "Isn't protective apparition 2 weeks since you deal the damage after an attack was made against them, or forced to make a save?"
I mean, that's true if you're using it on yourself, but you don't have to. I would put it on the tank.
You call 3 watchful spirits from beyond the veil to safeguard a creature. Oh yeah, range 30 feet. Yeah, you can see within range. Visible to those creatures other than you. Yeah. This is totally backline support. Well, I say backline support. Yeah, backline. Yeah.
Throw that on your tank or a different melee squishy that your enemies want to attack, and you'll get some real nice damage off it.
That's how you do it. Put it on the barb. DM and Torres, if I could only afford that, I'm from Argentina, and $1 is about 150 of our currency. So another thing, and I can't guarantee that it will always get a response. I know there's some people that I owe some consulting work to. But if you come over to the DM's Guild, if you come over to my channel, up in the banner, you'll actually see that there's a Discord icon, which is a permanent, like, forever good link over to my Discord community, where it's actually, I'm really, really proud of it. There's been several really great creators come into that community and offer good advice on, like, homebrewing. So if you go and post up over in that critique my work submission channel, I can't guarantee that it's always going to get a reply, but people are more than often willing to help you out and getting it to at least getting an opinion on there that isn't just throwing it out to Reddit to trust, randos on the internet too. Yeah, the people over there have been really
I wish I
constructive.
had more time and the financial flexibility to be able to do a lot more like pro bono stuff like that. The difficulty is for most of this pandemic, I have my entire job. Like I have not been like my the only source of income I have had has been from content creation.
Yep.
So I have to focus pretty much all my energy on that, and because of that, I haven't really been able to give back to the community like I tend to prefer to be able to do. And I've had to be a lot more aggressive about monetizing my consultation services.
Yeah.
So perhaps in the future, if I am more financially flexible, I'll offer like free consultation sessions. But at this time, I'm unable to do it, and I'm sorry about that, DM and Torres, because I would love to be able to give you some guidance.
Yeah.
If I could.
So like even while we were doing this live stream, I think kind of honestly because the channel's been doing really well, I got 5 emails about people that were asking me to like evaluate their homebrew, and as much as I would love to do that, 5 emails asking me to go through like a full class is like I don't know that I can get to every single one of them, and I don't want to disappoint everybody. So I kind of have to put a dollar sign on there, right? Where I'm like, if you come up, show some support on the Patreon, I can guarantee you at least a little bit of my time to help you out, like once a month or something like that. But, it's kind of gotten to a point where a lot of us that have been doing this for a while, we're, for our own sanity, we're needing to make sure that like we price ourselves effectively. Yeah. So I don't want to discourage anybody from making homebrew content. This is a super, super fun hobby. This is a very, very fun hobby.
Oh, yes. But
Uh,
I mean, one of the ways I do try to give back is like I believe it was Zandy asking about it earlier with if they can use my Ghost Fire cantrip. Like,
oh,
absolutely,
yeah,
please. Like,
yeah.
just with proper attribution, by all means. I want to support your work any way that I can. Um, Also, Michael Cullen, it's been a little bit lost, is asked about a combo Spiteful Strike plus Scorching Ray. Just remember that Spiteful Strike is only once per turn. So you get the bonus on one of those Scorching rays, but not on all of them. Yes, I did account for that because that would be an intensely overpowered combo otherwise.
All right, all right. Oh yeah, thank you, Bram. Um, okay, so everybody, this is the Shaman. You can go pick this up over on the DMs Guild. The link is pinned to the top of chat. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Ross, so much for being here. I know that
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
people have been really, really requesting this, so I'm happy that we got the chance to finally sit down and do this. Very fun live stream. Anything else you want to promote while you're here?
I mean, only the same things I've been promoting. The Sculptor Remaster, which is the Sculptor class brought up to my modern design sensibilities and including 24 subclasses and 24 mana source spell lists and magic items and a comprehensive NPC stat block section that lets you make sculptors of every subclass, of every mana source, at every tier of play. It's going to be massive. It's in editing right now, and I cannot wait to get it out later this
Wait,
summer.
you're that far
I'm
along
also
with it?
working. Oh yeah, the entire base draft is done. It's in editing. It's going to be in editing until early July. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, 24. Yeah, yeah. Holy hell is right. It's going to be huge. It is 32,000 words, and which is double the length of the Shaman, by the way. And it's going to
Jeez.
have a whole bunch of custom art. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait. Um, uh, and then I'm also working with Benjamin Huffman and a whole bunch of unannounced collaborators on the Ultimate Adventurer's Handbook. Just this week, if you saw my Twitter, I wrote an ooze slash oblex based sorcerer subclass and a parkour based ranger subclass. So, and then I'm also working on a Jedi slash force based monk subclass right now for that book that I'm
Okay.
very excited about. So if you want to support me or just join my other social media, I also have a Discord server that you are welcome to join. I have a Patreon that I have been plugging the shit out of for a lot of this live stream that I would love for you to join. Because even the $1 tier allows you to get a whole bunch of stuff. And then, of course, I have a Twitter. So feel free to join me. I don't post all the time. I sometimes forget it's there for like 2 weeks at a time, and then I will inundate it with stuff when I remember it exists.
Yeah.
But either way, so just feel free to join me. I cultivate friendly communities, and I'd love to see you around.
Awesome, awesome. All right, everyone. Whew. Long live stream. Anyways, that is going to be it. Thank you all so much for being here. Everybody, big shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Uh, you all are the ones helping me to do cool stuff like this. If you are interested in D&D related content, collabs, like stuff like this, I do a bunch of D&D. Sorry, I'm also very tired. Also, a lot of D&D content over on my Patreon. Come join up over in the Discord. Big shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for everything, guys. Thank you all that sponsor Ross over on Patreon. You all are really keeping the homebrew D&D scene alive, really with every single person that you sponsor in this stuff. Thank you all so much for 4,000 freaking subscribers. I is still kind of like clicking for me. Anyways, guys, hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one.